Welcome back, everybody, to the Little Less Fear podcast, the Dr. Lino Show. I would like to welcome Jeanell. Jeanell, what's your last name? Why isn't it on here?
I'm
Green? Oh, Jeanell Greene, as in Greene, not the color green. Jeanell Greene is a life and relationship coach who's on a mission to save marriages and heal families from generational trauma caused in childhood. She is well known for helping couples return from the brink of separation and ultimately divorce in less than 30 days. Jeanell loves talking about her own marriage of 17 years and how they keep the fire hot. I want to know, and I'm sure listeners are curious about this too. Welcome to the Little Less Fear podcast, Jeanell Greene.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to get into this.
Yeah, awesome. So, hey, you're very passionate about what you're doing. What brought you to your journey, and what makes you so passionate about it? What in your journey brought you to such a passionate, I guess, exuberant, energetic, the vibe? You're just vibing really high, and I'm really curious to know what got you here.
Yeah. Well, let me start from the beginning. I am Filipino Catholic. I am from Vancouver, Canada, and I am married. We are married, no kids, and we just have the most amazing and extraordinary love story. But the way it started, like a lot of stories, is it didn't start out so well. Growing up, Filipino families really are about family. So I think that's the first thing I would say. I was brought up with two parents that really, really loved each other and didn't tell us how to be great people. They showed us.
That's beautiful.
And so is in their interactions, in their playfulness, in their affection, in their partnership. They had their own business, a janitorial business together. They prayed together. They went to church together. We did family stuff together. And so I think it's so important, because we're talking about also generational trauma and how this impacts children and our future generations. I feel so blessed to have witnessed that, because as children, our parents are our first teachers.
Absolutely. Totally.
And if our teachers are not great teachers, or their teachers were non-existent, or were really not.
Yeah. How do you navigate life then?
Yeah. And so that's a lot of what I deal with, is teaching people how to have really basic social communication, emotional and mental skills, so that they can be with themselves and other people in a really authentic way. I feel like society has kind of pulled us away from who we know ourselves to be intuitively, and trying to put us in boxes and being like, oh, so you've been divorced. Okay, so you're that kind of person. Or you've cheated on someone. Or you're that kind of person. When at the end of the day, we're all the same.
Right.
We all want to be loved. We all want to feel connection. Right. We all want to feel accepted just the way we are and just the way we're not. And we all fear rejection, and we fear failure.
Right.
And at the end of the day, like, if we can just get that we're actually more alike than we think we are, then we can have more compassion and forgiveness.
Yes.
For each other.
Exactly.
And so when I was 9, when my life changed, when I was 9, my dad cheated on my mom with my mom's best friend, and they had a baby.
That's tough.
And I remember, being 9 for sure. And I remember, standing at that window watching my dad leave, my mom telling us that, dad is leaving, he doesn't love us anymore. And I remember just standing at that bay window watching my dad go into a car that I didn't recognize. In hindsight, looking back, when I did my inner work in my 30s, I discovered that what happened in that moment, as I made 3 decisions as that 9-year-old. I decided that I'm unlovable, I can't trust men, and everybody I love will leave me.
Oof, that's heavy.
Yeah. And so fast forward, here I am dating and, trying to find my future mate.
And you've been carrying all that since you were 9 years old.
Carrying all that and not realizing that I'm carrying it, and then wondering why I'm attracting the kind of people and energy into my life. And I'm like, what is it about me? And so that is the journey for me. And that was during my first marriage, was I really got like, what is it about me that I can't seem to have healthy relationships? And in that digging, in that coaching capacity, in that support, I was able to discover these wounds that I thought had healed. So fast forward back to my dad's story. What happened was, so he left, they had a baby. 3 years later, God would intervene and my dad would get sick. And he actually had to get on an organ transplant list.
Oh,
So
wow.
both his kidneys shut down and he couldn't work. He had to go on dialysis. And his girlfriend kicked him out because he couldn't work, couldn't provide. So he comes back to my mom, who is a nurse, and he says, Mama, I'm sick and I need someone to take care of me. Can I come home? And at this point, one of the memories I have as a child is sitting at church, just bored out of my mind, as my mom prayed every single day.
Uh-huh.
Even for 20 minutes, we would just go into any church and she would pray. So here comes my dad 2-3 years, maybe about 3 years later, and says this. And my mom says, yes, I forgive you.
Wow.
And yes, I will take you back under 2 conditions. One condition, you never go back. If you're here, you're here.
Uh-huh.
Number 2, we completely let this go. We close up that, we put it away, we move forward, and we never look back. And she honored her word. She never brought it up as a low blow, no matter how bad their fights got. And it was actually my dad who would bring it up when he would have these moments of guilt, realizing what he had done. And my mom saying, no, we're not doing that. Yeah. We're committed to really being happy. And so I think that was the first time I really got, wow, love is so powerful. And
it really is. Wow.
Family, if you have family and love and God in the center of all of that, anything you want is possible. And I think if you're listening to this as someone who is struggling in your marriage, sometimes it's just that commitment, that willingness to say, yeah, I'm open to saving this. I don't know how, but I am willing.
I love this.
Right? Then now you can see that. So a lot of people will come to me and say, Jeanell, I want to forgive. I just don't know how.
That's the toughest part.
That is the toughest part. And so my response back is, if you don't know forgiveness for yourself, if there's something that you haven't forgiven yourself about, there is no way that you can give that to somebody else. You got to learn it for yourself first. Mm-hmm. And that's why my work, even though, I consider myself, a relationship coach, the relationship is actually with ourselves first and foremost.
So how do you guide someone on how to forgive themselves? What's an example?
I think the first thing, and this is, I think, the biggest problem, is that people don't actually understand what forgiveness actually is.
That's true. So what is forgiveness?
Yeah. So most people think forgiveness is about the other person, about forgiving them for what they did to us to hurt us. And once we feel satisfied that they are sorry, now we quote unquote forgive them. But now the forgiveness is tied to someone else's, response or feedback, when forgiveness actually is a gift we give ourselves. We don't need feedback. We don't need someone to say sorry to us. We don't need them to apologize. We can just, for our own sanity and our peace, to give that gift to ourselves. And I think that we've just been brought up in a society where we've been taught it's the other way around.
Right.
But it actually is us, freeing ourselves from the prison that we put ourselves in.
So how does someone begin to forgive themselves?
I think, well, first of all, what is it that we need to forgive ourselves? Like, get clear about what that is.
Okay.
What are the fears? What are the worries? What are the insecurities? Where is their trauma?
Right.
That maybe didn't seem like trauma at the time. So total divergence of conversation. So lately I've been playing with this idea of unworthiness. And, as I continue I like to call it purify my heart so that I can raise my ability to serve, I'm looking within myself, right? The work never ends.
Right. That's true. The work never ends.
It doesn't. People go, well, Jeanell, you've been doing this for 20 years. Your life must be perfect. I'm like,
no. The
it's
work
not.
keeps going. Yeah.
Exactly. It feels perfect in sometimes, but then my humanity, my ego, my doubt, my fears sometimes creep in. And that's why I do a lot of subconscious, conscious work. I do a lot of I love neuroscience. I'm a big
Oh, me too. I love all
and
that
the
stuff.
nerd. Yeah. So I do a lot of that work. But back to what we're talking about, unworthiness. I started to ask myself, like, why do I feel unworthy? Like, what is that about? Because my environment doesn't doesn't say that, right? I've got
Right.
the most loving husband, the most supportive family. Like, but why do I feel unworthy? And when I really like went backwards and dug deep, I saw two things. Number one, there were beliefs about women, about what is possible in the world. And I found myself surrounded by people that didn't see possibility the way I saw possibility. You know, I have a mission to transform 10 million lives
That's
before
amazing.
yeah. And some people would go, cool, Jeanell, that's really cool. And some people would be like, are you crazy? How are you going to do that? That's not possible. Right. And so I think it was really just giving myself that freedom to say, well, why not? Why not me? Why not, you
Sure.
know, if anybody else is worthy. But then I was like, okay, well, what makes me worthy of that? And what I discovered was that I've had at least 5 people in my life that have tried to sexually assault me. I've had, I was molested as a child. I had my best friend in high school try to rape me in a bathroom. I've had a lot of like those things, but the way I was taught was like, suck it up, move on, let it go, don't
Don't
hang on,
talk about it. Don't think
don't
about it.
talk
Just let it
about it.
go.
Right. Maybe it's your fault. Maybe you did something. But really, when I started to unpack this unworthiness conversation, that's where it came from. And so I realized that I had given my power over to these people, and it was time for me to take it back. And so that's the work I've been doing in the past couple of weeks, is going, when I can really find peace and completion and healing from what happened and know that it has nothing to do with my worthiness, I can create a new conversation for who I am. And who I am is a bold, badass,
Yeah.
loving disruption, who is like direct and honest and just full of love and a stand for families and is on a mission to bring love and healing to the world. That is who I am.
I
And
love it.
so when I know who I am, I can come back to that whenever life takes me out. And I see the issue with a lot of people is they don't know who they are. They dictate their identity to whom other people say they are.
Right.
And they lose themselves.
They sure do. Oh, yeah. And it's easy to get lost too. I love what you said right now, as far as getting your worthiness back is by finding peace. And when you find peace and when you start to find inner peace, and also, I guess you could say, forgiving yourself, that's taking your power back.
Yeah. Yeah. And to answer your question about the forgiveness piece, I think it really starts with, and this is the work I do with my clients, is we know our emotions. Emotions are very clear for us, right? But it's the thoughts that we're unclear about. And when you can take those emotions and try to distill them into thoughts, now you can actually have something to work with, because emotions are so all over the place, right?
They are. Oh,
They're
yeah.
not logical, right? You
No,
can't reason with emotion.
no, that's for sure.
So the work then is, how do we bring that emotion into the thoughts? And a lot of the thoughts that we have are a reflection of our beliefs, but more succinctly, it is a reflection of our memories.
Yeah.
And most of those memories are negative. And so then we continue to drag the past into our future, even though we say we don't want it to be part of the future. We just habitually do that until we're able to truly, truly forgive ourselves and have compassion for whatever other people have done to us or what we've done to ourselves.
How do you define compassion?
Love, just love and acceptance. I have a quote. I say this to myself almost every day, and I say it to my clients almost every session. And it goes like this: pain and suffering only exist when you resist what is so.
I
And
love it.
this is so perfect because we're talking about fear,
Yeah.
right? So fear, what do? We resist it. We're like, no, we
Right. Fear
avoid
isn't
it.
resistance.
Yeah, we avoid it, we deny it, we resist it, and then we wonder why we're so tired all the time.
Right, right, right.
But when we can just accept and love everything, starting with ourselves, now there's space. Now there is access to something new. And so, like, for example, pain and resistance, pain and suffering only exist when we resist what's so. So when we have it like, I shouldn't be this way, my body shouldn't be this way, my spouse shouldn't be this way, my finances shouldn't be this way. When there is a should, there is an expectation, and then there is pressure, and then there is resistance. But when we can just be like, hey, you know what? My finances are the way they are. My body is the way it is because I've been eating potato chips and now we're taking responsibility and we're no longer a victim. And the word responsibility, if you look at it, it is the ability to respond. It is not fault. It is not blame. Responsibility is just the ability to respond. So when you say, yeah, you know what? I did this to myself. Yeah, you know what? My relationship is the way it is because of me. Now you have power.
Now, how is that difference between accountability, or is there a difference?
I think so responsibility is the acknowledgement, is the acceptance and the love. And this is my
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
I'm saying this is gospel or truth.
Yeah.
Accountability is really about the action, the behavior change, the being bigger and better than your old self.
I love that.
So normally I would probably get mad at you and say this thing, but because I'm committed and I'm being accountable to who I say I am, I'm going to now be different. I'm going to respond different. I'm going to take that breath. I'm going to pause. I'm going to bring love and compassion to the conversation. That is distinct. Responsibility is just the ownership, but responsibility does not include the change of action and the change of result.
Oh man, I love that. There's a lot of clarity in that. Thanks for answering that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So let's go back into talking about fear as a resistance. So if somebody, let's say a relationship, since we're talking about relationships, let's say that somebody is constantly living in their fear. Fear is also flight and fight survival. And a lot of the times that's constantly playing in a loop. Cortisol levels can even go up. Stress hormones are going up. People can't sleep. How do you even begin to get someone out of that flight and fight response in order for them to ground and come down at a more level, for them to realize what just one simple resistance is that's causing them to act that way or be responsible in a certain way?
Yeah. I'm a big believer of journaling. And I think a lot of it, again, fear is an emotion. And when we can kind of put that into something that we can actually work with, right? And so that's why the journaling is, I think, really important is, okay, well, what is it am I actually fearing? And is it legit?
Yeah.
Right. So like one of my fears, because I did this exercise, one of my fears was failing as a wife and letting my husband down. And when I wrote that down, I looked at it and I went, okay, I got that as a fear, but
where does it come from?
Yeah, where does it come from, and is it true?
Mm-hmm.
And when I wrote it down, I looked at it and I laughed. I was like, oh my gosh, why is that a fear? Like, it's a fear, but it's not like, there was a part of me that believed that. And when I wrote it down, I realized like that's belief actually there's no evidence. It's just a thought.
Right. And beliefs are thoughts we keep thinking.
Right. And so it's like, okay, well, what is the narrative that I want to be? Well, again,
I love that. What is the narrative that I want to be?
Yeah. So if the narrative is I want to be a wife that completely trusts that her husband has her back, the way I show up, the energy I come with, what I'm willing to do and not do, the boundaries I put up is all created from that stand of called being a really amazing wife. Like I am clear in my marriage. It's like, oh, you scratch your back, you scratch my back, I scratch yours, and we're always scratching each other's back all the time. And so both people just feel so loved and appreciated. And there's just this flow of, pouring into each other.
Ooh, I love
And,
that.
and so if you asked my husband about our marriage, the word he would use is easy.
Wow, that's beautiful.
He's like, yeah, we have a really easy marriage. We clean up our mess. We bring no ego into the relationship. We bring no blame, no fault. Everything is us. Even when I spill something or I do something dumb, it's a us.
Yes.
And so that experience of having someone who got my back no matter what and loves me unconditionally. And I think for women, a lot of our fear is, what if he leaves me, right? And for me, especially abandonment issues, hello.
Sure.
That is not an issue in this relationship. Because
I,
I do the things that I know to do to be the kind of person that I know he needs from me, and vice versa.
and that's the way things function. That's connection. That's true connection. I have a question, Jeanell. Going back to the fear that you had, the irrational fear that you were having, as far as like a fear of failing, being a good wife. Did any of those fears? Did you see that any of those fears were carrying on to actions and some of your behaviors within the marriage?
Definitely in my first marriage,
Okay.
because I didn't know any better. I felt like up until that point in my life, I was asleep. You know what I mean? Asleep to my life.
Totally.
My former life before I became a coach is I was in software sales working for one of the largest HR companies in the world, traveled the world, made tons of money, was living the fab life. And it just wasn't enough for me, and I felt like I needed to find my purpose in this world. And so I think we go through life and we just sort of, we have to listen to our heart. We have to listen to our gut, not everybody else, not social media, not our parents, not even our friends.
Right.
Because they have their own life, they have their own story, they have their own experiences, and whatever that comes out of their mouth is a reflection of that. And so I think that's one of the beauties of being with a coach, is that you have this wide open space where there aren't these walls that are the limitations. The only limitations are the ones that you put up. And when you work with a coach, the coach can hear the limitation and point it out. And now the thing that was hidden from your view, the blind spot, has now been brought to light. And now, again, you can deal with something that you can see. When it's in the dark, right? The boogeyman, when the boogeyman is hiding in the dark, we're afraid of it.
We sure are. Oh, definitely.
But when we can shine the light and see, there's nothing under the bed, there's nothing in the corner of the room, we're like, oh, I got nothing to be afraid of.
What do you find the most challenging in being a relationship coach? Or do you find a challenge in it at all?
Not getting too involved. I am just such an advocate for family. And I know that when family works, our whole society will work.
Yeah, everything around us will work.
And I think when two people look at each other less than love, and they make up stories about the one person they've committed their life to, it's very hurtful. Because I think we forget that we are all God's children. We all doing the best we can with what we know. We're not out to hurt each other. We're not here to be malicious. True. So why do we not give our partner, who we say we love, who we said, you are my person, the benefit of the doubt? Why do we go to the negative and entertain the fear first before actually getting what's so? So I think this is what's beautiful about me and Mike, is we talk about it. I'm like, hey, honey. So my husband's dad passed away, and he's been very quiet and a little bit disconnected. And so, I found myself being like, are you okay? Is there something else other than that that's in the way? And of course, he's like, no, honey, everything's fine. Everything's fine. And then one day I said to him, listen, I'm sorry that I keep asking you, but I got to tell you, I have a fear. I have a fear that we're losing touch. I have a fear that you're going through something and I'm not aware of it. I'm afraid that you don't love me, or you're losing that love and feeling for me. Like, I just got so vulnerable with him.
Yeah.
And he was able to be like, oh, honey, no, that's not it at all. Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry I made you feel that way. But I want people to take two things away from this conversation. Number
Yes,
one,
please.
it is the way, it is the tone that we come to our partner with. Notice I didn't say, you never pay attention to me. No, 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 no. You know, I
Right.
didn't come from a wrong making place. I really came from, again, responsibility. Here's how I'm
Right.
feeling. Here are my fears. Here's what I
Yeah.
worry about in our relationship.
Right. And what's something else? What's the second? So the first is the tone that we come to a partner with.
Yeah. And then the second thing is just like the honesty
The honesty.
and the vulnerability of our own humanity.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to look bad. We don't want to look bad. We don't want to be judged. We don't want to be rejected. We don't want to fail. But it is in that courage to actually be vulnerable and be willing to fail, willing to be rejected, willing to show weakness that connects us.
Definitely. Why does that connect us?
Because we're all miserable. And I think, especially with social media, there's been, can I just say a pause for a second? My nose is going crazy. And when my nose goes crazy, it means there's a spirit around me. So if
Oh,
you
yeah.
notice, if you notice, right before we started talking, there was nothing going on in my nose. And as soon as we started talking, my nose started to twitch and I noticed myself going like this. And I'm like, okay, someone's here with me. Sorry, I
That's
just had
beautiful.
to so it's super cool. And it happens too when I sing at church.
Nice.
The other time that happens.
That means we're on the right track.
Yes, we are. Yes, we are. Sorry. Bring me back to where we were. Sorry, I was squirrel.
No, I love it. So basically, why is being vulnerable so important? Like, why does that connect us, being vulnerable?
Because I think we have spent so much time wearing masks to protect ourselves. And I think we all, in some way, feel lonely. Alone, and specifically alone in our struggle, alone in our pain and trauma. And I think part of the beauty of, first of all, this podcast, but also in the work that I do, is I give people that feeling that, oh, I'm not alone.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm not, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm not broken. I'm just going through this phase in life, which is okay. And so again, it's about removing the resistance. So you're like, I'm okay. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm perfect, perfectly imperfect. And that's okay.
How do we remove resistance if there's a party of two and the other party is not communicating at all? Let's say the other party is shutting down and one party is willing to communicate. How do you remove that resistance?
Yeah, I think first of all is acknowledging that that's just what there is, that this person, what this person is doing is not mean-spirited.
Mhm.
It is just like a coping mechanism. So I think awareness is really important. Because I think sometimes, especially when we're in fight or flight, right, when we're in survival, we're not paying attention to what's going on with the other person. We're only
True.
dealing with ourselves.
Right.
And so we get very self-centered, right?
Yeah.
Go into survival, and we're forgetting that the other person is going through something, having an experience right now. So in that shutdown conversation,
Yeah.
me and my husband have had that in the past, and all my couples have it. It's like, how do you deal with one person who doesn't want to shut up, and then the other person who's like, I need a timeout, and we just numb out. So I'm the numb outer. I'm the runner.
Yeah.
I shut down because when I was growing up, I had to be the good girl, the people pleaser.
And that was your coping mechanism to feel
That
safe.
was my coping mechanism, was just smiling and nodding my head, even though deep down inside, that was farther from the truth. But yeah, I think just acknowledging that. So what me and my husband did in that case, and what I do with my clients, is we have a conversation. Why are we numbing out? Acknowledging that it's what we did as kids, or acknowledging that that's what mom did. So that's what I do. Or if I'm yelling, maybe that's what dad did. And so I'm acknowledging that that's where I picked it up. So
Right.
first of all, acknowledging, because then you can
Acknowledgement.
take responsibility,
Uh-huh.
right?
Right.
Then and then the second thing is creating a structure. I'm all about creating structure, because when you are in survival mode in your old brain, right? There
Yeah,
is no space for learning. There's no space for negotiation or compromise. It's like it's a brawl, it's a fight,
it sure is.
it's a domination game.
Yeah.
So what I advise my couples is have the conversation before it happens. So this it goes like this. Okay, Mike, when as my husband's name is Mike.
Okay.
Okay, Mike, when I'm upset and I ask for a timeout, I need you to stop talking and let me have my timeout. Give me 5 minutes to go outside for a walk, to go into my bathroom, to do whatever it is I need to do to calm down.
Yeah. Also to calm down your nervous system, because your nervous system
Right.
is like, it's literally
Ah,
electrified and it's wired. Yeah.
yeah. And when I get, like a lot of people, when we feel confronted, the claws come out, right? We go into
Yeah.
survival mode. And so what happens with me is I say really mean stuff that I don't mean, that I end up having to clean up. And so I can feel when I'm getting there and I'm like, honey, you need to stop. But he doesn't stop. He keeps going. And so we've had I would say 2 or 3 blowouts probably 10 years ago until we had this conversation.
Uh-huh.
And so what he admitted to me was, babe, I'm afraid to let you go because I'm afraid you're never going to come back.
Mm.
So he was honest enough to let me know that's why he chased me.
Yeah.
And so I got to come back to him and say, honey, I promise you, I will never leave. It is just, I just need to come down from my crazy brain so that I can have a real conversation with you. And so once that understanding and that agreement was created, now when we got into that same situation, we knew exactly what was needed.
That's beautiful.
And so instead of this argument about the dishwasher going on for 4 hours,
Oh man.
right? It was like, because it's like one thing leads to another thing that leads to another.
Right.
Like now those things are like 5 minutes long. Right. And we know what we need. And then we also, love talking about love languages. I know that when my husband's upset, he needs to hear, I love you. He needs to know that I still have all the loves for him.
Mm-hmm.
And he needs some sort of physical touch, a hug, a kiss, something like that.
Yeah.
So we figured out the formula in which each of us really need to have and feel loved and safe. That is so important, feeling safe. And then for him or for me, my love language is service and words of affirmation. So for me, I said, babe, I just need you to sit. I need you to listen. I need you to close your mouth. Don't try to fix me. Don't try to give me advice. And when I'm finished talking, I need you to tell me you love me and get me some ice cream. So we know exactly we know what to expect. We know what we need to say, and we come out of it unscathed. And so our relationship is always present. We're never dealing with something from the past.
I love that the communication is open. And I always felt that communication is key. And it just gets a little challenging sometimes when one communicates more than the other. And how do you balance that out? And how do you even welcome communication with someone that feels that they don't even know how to communicate? So I could feel that that could also be really challenging. How do you help your clients? Do you help them separate one from the other or together as a couple?
Both. And that is why I believe my work is so unique and extraordinary and impactful.
Mm-hmm.
It's because there is work that we need to do on our own that our
Mm-hmm.
partner doesn't need to really know about, right?
True. Yes, absolutely.
Right. And to your point, a lot of us were never taught how to express emotion. A lot of men, right? It's a new thing. Like, what's this thing called emotion? And how do I be with it with my partner?
Yeah.
Right? And also, how do I even understand my own?
Definitely.
And so for me, with them, my job is to really encourage them and to validate them, whatever is going on, even if it doesn't make sense to them, to be like, yeah, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
I totally get it. That whole numbing out thing. Yeah. And I think because I'm a very masculine woman,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of ways, I feel like I understand men more than I understand women.
That makes sense. Yeah,
right?
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And so I work with them individually to work on whatever they need to work on to be happy. Because
Mhm.
sometimes it's even something as minor as or as irrelevant as I've gained 20 pounds. And that's why I don't love myself. That's why I don't want to have sex. That's why I
Right.
don't feel confident. But in the relationship, all you see is, well, she doesn't seem interested in me.
Right.
Right. And so I go in with that with them deeper on a private level. I do that
But
with
that's
both.
because that, and in turn that other individual is not really interested in themselves, and then that's kind of the vibe they're giving off. So the other person is feeling, well, they're not interested in me. But that's really because they're not interested in the way they feel and the way they look.
Right. And so that's why we get stuck in this vicious cycle, right? Of loneliness and frustration and stress and
Yeah.
like all of this neglect and all of that. And then we come together at the end as a couple. And I teach and I coach on some really like strategies like the one I just shared with earlier. So really based on whatever it is that they're dealing with, that's what I deal with. I don't try to put them in a box and try to give them the same protocol. It really is dependent on what they're dealing with.
Right. Definitely. I
And
love
so I
that.
really get to customize the experience for them based on what they say they want from me. And I tell them, I'm like, this is not my agenda. This is your agenda. You tell me your goals. I'll hold you accountable to those goals. And what's distinct of coaching is this is not moral. This is not a morality thing. This is not about good, bad, right, and wrong. All I care about is what do you want? Who
Mhm.
are you? And we'll deal with everything that gets in the way of who do you want to become and what you want most in life.
I
And for
love
most
it, Jeanell.
families, what they want is they want peace, they want love, they want connection, they want intimacy. And so then they realize working with me that, oh, we want the same things.
Yeah.
We just haven't talked about it. And the way we communicate it is different. So how do we speak the same language? So that's where I come in.
I love this. Jeanell Greene, everybody, life and relationship coach. I love the energy. I love the alignment. I love the connection. How can our viewers, our watchers, and our listeners find you and your services if they need a life and relationship coach?
Yeah. Well, the easy answer is saveourmarriage.ca.
Oh, I love that.
But you can also find me at jeanellgreene.com, and that's JeanellGreene.com.
And are you on social media? What are your social media handles?
Oh, yeah. I'm on TikTok. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm on LinkedIn.
And is
Um,
your social media handles the same? Is it saveourmarriage.ca or is it Jeanell Greene?
Instagram, I'm at Save Our Marriage.
Okay, great. I love it.
On Facebook, I'm actually a Wing Woman Hero, which was my first initial company, and I haven't changed it yet.
Great.
I used to actually just coach men.
Really?
Yeah, I love.
Well, I definitely need some coaching.
Yeah, I love it. I just find it so much simpler.
I agree. I mean, I guess I agree. Jeanell Greene, everyone, thank you so much for sharing all of your love. I'm really blessed to have crossed paths with you. Thank you so much. Do you have any final words for our viewers or watchers and our listeners?
Mm. Be love.
Be
Be
love.
love. Be love. I feel like we make things so complicated. But if we just be love, first of all, to ourselves and then to the rest of the world, that is our guiding light. My guiding light.
And it's my guiding light too, Jeanell. And I am love. I'm love. You're love. We're all love. Thanks so
Yeah.
much for being in love on a Little Less Fear podcast. Have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.